That's right, I didn't turn it on. That's what's going on there. There we go. Oh, right. Let's get started, huh? I think today we gonna work down here. We're gonna work on this arm, I think, first, then the legs. Maybe this guy, depending on the time, and then some of these side things. I think that'll be the plan. But not a huge amount of time today, but that's what we'll do. A little bit of a late start. I was yelling at somebody on the so so that always delays things a little bit. Let's see. Let's find some music to listen to. Let's get it open here. Oh, right. So I feel like I made good progress on this stuff last time. Oh, there's definitely another pass. Actually, I probably should do the little hand part there. And add in the kind of a wire going to the back here. But ready to roll this morning, right? So I gotta rotate this sideways. Sort of me working details today. We'll just zoom in. All right, so let's connect into here and go over like that. How's that for a curve? Is that okay? Guess I'll put you both in the same spot. There we go, that's better. Sure, I'm keeping this where it's visible. All right, and then we'll put in another one. I'll probably glaze these with a Another color. Let's get them in with the white. Oh, feels good. All right. That feels better. I warm up by doing something really careful and precise, right? That's the trick, right? Earthquake? Where? There better not be some internet meme I'm not aware of. Oh, the camera. Oh, that's because it's attached to the table, and we're super zoomed in, so it's going to move around a little bit. Yeah, so it's zoomed in a lot from overhead. I have a big zoom lens up there, and so um, yeah, it's usually less apparent when I'm have it more zoomed out. But I figured since I'm working on details, might as well zoom in a bit more, right? Then you look at the scale of her head next to my thumb. You know, it's pretty small. Or I have giant hands, right? One of the two. So partially why I got this camera is actually so I could zoom in. Yeah, it's on a post that's over the table. It's also attached to the table. I'd love to find a way to not attach it, but no, there's not a lot of room in this studio space. And I'm going to push this over just a scotch. And so it's hard to kind of set up like a big boom in here that I'm not tripping over all the time. That's a regular head, not a small head. I just have a giant, yeah, I'm a giant cyclops, yeah, a giant walking around. Billy Khan. But, it's actually a human head. I just stuck it on here. It's not even a painting. I just, you know, grabbed one walking home after getting out from under my cave last night and brought one back here with me. Because that's how I operate. Um, yep. Like, have you ever seen the Brian Froud pressed fairy book? So it's like pressed flowers, but it's fairies. Um, it's that kind of thing. Where I just, you know, grab somebody and threw him down. Um, I delayed my start this morning because I was arguing with someone on the internet. He was saying no one has ever used the golden ratio, and here's examples of people not using it. And I'm like, well, it's not really a line of argument. Like, it just kind of sounds silly. So people have used it. Doesn't mean it's you have to, or that it makes things better, or whatever. I don't know if you're familiar with the golden ratio or not, but it's a rectangle that you kind of divide. And it's a scam. I mean, like I said, I don't use it very often, or haven't used it very often. It's like it's interesting. There's just different ways of kind of dynamically subdividing a composition. Um, I don't. I think it's probably unnecessarily complicated. I don't advocate that necessarily people do use it, and people provide bad examples, right? So they'll say, "Oh, look, here's a nautilus shell. That is a golden spiral, right?" And it's not. Like they put the spiral on top of it, it doesn't line up at all. Like it's a spiral, sure. It's not a golden rectangle though. So he provided examples. I actually found the exact blog post to use because it was all the images from that post, which I thought was kind of funny. Um, I said, well, what about this Dali, this Last Supper by Dali? Because I know Dali liked and used geometric design systems. Well, people use it in a way that doesn't match the actual format, so they'll squeeze it on top of a Da Vinci painting, right? Like on top of the Mona Lisa, and obviously that doesn't work because you're just arbitrarily placing it over a random image that's not proportionate to that space, or obviously doesn't use that. Because people like to see meaning where there isn't any. But this Dali painting, it's pretty explicit. Like it's like it's unmissable. And his retort was, he goes, "I don't see it at all in there, except for this spot, and this spot." And I'm like, "Well, exactly. You see it right there in front of you. Um, like it's right there, right where you said it is." He's like, "No, no, that's not important. This is not important." I'm like, "Well, that's a value judgment. It seems like it's important to Dali. I mean, everything he was Mr. Symbolism, and everything he put in his pictures was supposed to mean something, and kind of to even just to like in that picture particularly, like to punctuate his point, like he puts a giant dodecahedron in the background, right? She's well, I think I had her like putting that more in her mouth, so I think I need to shorten these little robot finger things. Um, that's why I'm working on that now. We're kind of in the middle of what I call the ugly phase. And so that's me basically going mostly where I think I want it. I might change some stuff, but because I've been gradually updating things here. But a lot of this is like going through and clarifying stuff that was vague before. So like I need to darken that little spot under the nose. Half the problem is just this painting's really small. I was like, I have to do a bunch of these little tiny itty bitty paintings. So I immediately like put the shadow here. Oh, it's too light. Um, but yeah, like he said it's not there while talking about while it's there, and I'm like, well, you know, um, that's going to be your retort, you know. But people use it. It's just not, you know, a lot of the examples people provide. So if you do like a Google search or whatever, and you see the examples that people provide, like it's obviously not in those examples. Um, so my point in disagreeing with him wasn't that he should use it or that it must be used or it's good to use it. The point was, um, it can be used, sure. Should it? I don't know. Okay, there we go. Is that better? Just thinking about this jellyfish down here. Um, oh no, I always appreciate feedback. I don't always agree with feedback, but the one of the things I always try to, as an artist, I try to look for is the impression that something leads that affects people, and and why. So it's like when I'm teaching my students at the university, I do pay really close attention to their comments. I don't always agree with them, but it does tell me a lot about how an experience was received. So when I look at, their anonymous comments at the end of a semester, like, it doesn't mean I have to like do what they say, but or respond directly to the feedback in the way that addresses that particular concern. But it does tell me that there's something that they're experiencing that I should probably factor in some way. So, like, if they're not understanding the point of something, or what they're supposed to do, or how this is helpful, And I see that's pretty common. That shows me something. And I've noticed with like art stuff for my own work that sometimes something will stick out to me a little bit. Like I think, oh, that's a small problem. That's not a big deal. Um, but I've often found the things that my brain tells me are not a big deal are like the first things that people notice, and that maybe I should consider that more intently. Yeah. Well, it's like I remember I had a gallery show back in 2008, and at a gallery in Scottsdale, Arizona. The Paul Scott Gallery is a father son business, and I was feeling pretty good at that point where my landscapes were going because I was doing a lot of landscape oil painting outside and in studio, kind of mixing them all together. And I had this gallery show, this two-person show at this gallery in Scottsdale in the main art area, art district. And so I was feeling pretty high on my horse, right? I'm like, oh, I'm awesome. I'm doing great. And got it all. I spent a ton of money on expensive frames, and I went down to help set up, deliver the paintings and set up the show. And as soon as we got all of my work up on the wall, I realized that there was a lot of inconsistency in my work. I was actually like, oh, like what is going on here? And I just didn't see it before. And the gallery, they didn't say anything because they just liked what they were getting overall. And they did sell like some of the larger paintings, so that was a good experience in terms of like my first two-person show. Привет, доброе утро. Um, but yeah, but anyway, so like, yeah, seeing that work up on the wall for the first time, it's like, oh, like there's things that I clearly need to work on, and it wasn't that the paintings were bad per se. They just weren't. There was a lot of inconsistency in style and quality. I realized at that moment. Um, and so it led me to going to grad school. And this guy I was arguing with, he's a teacher now at that school, part time, I think. Um, but New York Academy of Art. Fabrizio. Uh, that's it. But um, so I'm definitely not opposed to other arguments, but like his argument was, here's some examples where it's not happening, and I'm like, well, that's not really like if he grabbed examples of where people claim it is happening, and then said why it's not actually working there, then that's like a different argument. Because I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying people do use it. Like graphic design, they use all kinds of different grids. A popular one is the A format, International Paper Root 2 Rectangle, because it allows you to kind of size up designs in easy ways, and that's what the whole paper system is based on, is a square. Um, so it does make certain things easier. Does it make them better? I don't know. Like I always, whenever people say is this something good or bad, I'm like, good or bad for what? Um, So yeah, but anyway, that was the argument I was having. It's just like, you can say it's not useful, like it doesn't improve the work or something like that. That's a an opinion at the very least. But painters and artists have been talking about it for a long time, so obviously somebody's using it. And I think it can be used as like an external justification for the quality of something when it doesn't actually improve the quality. So like, well, it is on a grid, so it must be good. And like, well, no. That doesn't mean anything. It's like you can make a really terrible meal out of high quality ingredients. You don't have to do a good job, and you can make a good meal sometimes out of poor quality ingredients, right? That reads better. We can shift this to a golden color. Yeah, so that was my point. It's not like, oh, it's good or bad or must be used or whatever. I just thought it was funny he pointed out um, in the image I provided where it is happening and then said it wasn't happening. I was like, oh, here, you just said it right there. You said it is there. Like, I don't know. There we go. I think that reads okay. Yeah, the good thing about the pigment thing is like I have these art books downstairs from as more oil painting focused. I should get back to it. I'm just trying to work on this comic book project, which isn't this obviously, um, but I like those kind of microscopic analyses of like Velasquez paintings or Rembrandt paintings that you can get from like the National Gallery or whatever. You can like it's right there. There's all the layers they're using, and I'm actually applying some of those techniques here using transparent and opaque layers layered on top of each other, which can add a lot of luminescence to an image, which I like. Now, does the image have to be luminous? I don't know, but by alternating opacity and opaque and transparent layers, or translucent and transparent layers, you create kind of this effect where light bounces through the painting and it makes it feel like it glows. Um, which I feel like is an objective reality, but maybe my objective understanding of the universe is not quite correct. Okay. Yeah, I've done copies of Rubens and Rembrandt at the Met in New York. Ah, okay. Yeah, those guys were amazing for their use of it, right? And one of the magical so you're probably well aware one of the properties of oil paint, especially to certain pigments, is that it gets more transparent over time. So the paintings we see today are even more luminous than they were when even they were alive. Um, so especially stuff like flake white, right? Which has it's better for painting because of it creates better internal structure in the pigment because it dries it combines with the seed oils like oxygen does, so it actually helps with the kind of internal drying of paint. which is sad because it's fallen out of favor because it's toxic. But I think if you handle it carefully, you don't eat your paint, you don't put your brushes in your mouth, you're probably fine most of the time. Yeah, I get looks from people like, you're using flake white or using lead-based mediums for your paintings. I'm like, yeah, I don't put it in my mouth. Oh, yeah. Well, one of the things that happens to older paintings too is they got covered in soot from candles and indoor fires, right? From they didn't have modern air conditioning. That was like a big controversy when they restored the Sistine Chapel because all the colors were suddenly bright instead of brown or leaning toward a brown. And people always think of like old master paintings as being like brown, right? Or that you see like that in a lot of medieval shows where they'll shift away from using bright colors because they didn't have the same pigments we do, but they still tried to make things colorful historically. Um, that's kind of a ahistorical to make the world, the historical world, medieval world brown. Um, yeah, so in the case of like the Michelangelo, one of the things that someone pointed out is that he designed the um, the Vatican Guard uniforms. So I guess the ones that they still use, similar colors, and all of that they use today, were all designed by Michelangelo. And if you look at those guard uniforms, they are brightly colored. And if you look at kind of the flat design approach of Michelangelo's painting, um, related to the medium, but it's kind of flat approach, it does make sense that he would do things in a brightly colored, kind of posterized way as much as possible. Um, so I think the brightly colored approach is certainly better um, for that. And I'm gonna work on this arm, I think. Yeah. Yeah, and then there's also if they used fugitive colors, right? So colors that fade with exposure to light, which happens, I think, most pigments anyway, to some degree. Um, Especially like water-based, anything that's water-based, like watercolor and that stuff is really, really susceptible to um, fading. That's why if you go to like pretty just general audience, not just you, but for everybody, you go to like an exhibit of watercolors at a museum, like the room is dark, like really, really dark. Um, that's because they don't want to harm the pigments in the paint. In general, they try to avoid direct light on paintings anyway. Um, yeah, the one thing like glazes and scumbles is if you overemphasize the glazes, it makes everything look like jelly. Which can be interesting, I suppose, but I think her shoulder's actually up here. Put that sleeve in the wrong spot. We can compensate that for by putting in opaque uh, layers on top. Yeah, that gives you a better picture of what things were actually like. Um, Thankfully, you can still get flake white, and there's actually a company, I think Rublev, they make a Dutch stack processed flake white, which I've never been able to buy. It's always not available. I think as soon as they release like a batch, it gets sold off like instantly because it takes more effort to make it. But it has there's regular flake whites you can buy from different companies like Williamsburg or Old Holland, and kind of more commercial brands, and there's specialized ones like Vasari. Those tend to be more kind of manufacturer process, so the particle size, while it's varied, more varied than like a titanium white, um, it's still more even than like something like a Rembrandt or a Rubens would have had access to, or Velasquez or whoever. Um, but um, but yeah, they do a Dutch stack process, which gets very highly varied pigment particles in it, and it's it's I think it's either identical or almost similar to the same process they use historically for making it. Um, from what I understand. Oh, we got our first bot of the day. Usually, they'll catch these things lately. Let's see. Block, block. Let's make sure it got deleted. No, delete. Yeah. You think like the automated systems in the streams would automatically get rid of these because they always say the exact same thing. It's not like they modify what they say. Um, but yeah, so yeah, I got deep into all the pigments and the effects and all of that stuff. I mean, it's probably not as knowledgeable as an actual archaeologist slash chemist, um, but it's similar to like with the grid thing. Does it is a painting being luminous better or worse? And that's, well, it depends. Right? It depends on what the intent is and the output of it is going to be. So, like, usually a painting that uses glazing and scumbling is better in person, but it actually kind of gets in the way if you're using it for publication. So you have to, like, because it reflects a lot of light, it's less matte. And so if you're trying to take a picture and you want to use, like, if you're doing an illustration for like a magic card or something like that, I made this leak too big too. Yeah, I just messed up all over the place here. Shoot that back. Um, then it's a little harder to document it properly for publication. Okay, yeah, I'll try that. I'm kind of, even though I've been streaming for a long time, I don't have that many. Like, Twitch is really bad for getting people to show up. So, like, especially for art streams, I think it's all about the games. But I multi-stream, and so hopefully that'll help. But I have like twice as many followers over on Kick than I have on Twitch, and then I have more over on YouTube. But I don't have like a regular schedule, and my show is just me painting, and so I don't think that that's that interesting to that many people. But yeah, why not? I say. Yeah, I need to go in and like figure out some of the background mechanics of things. Just it takes time. And my bigger concern is just like making sure the stream works. That I turn it on and it functions like it's due. Um, oh yeah, but I was having a problem for a little bit with Twitch to stream over there, and it turned out I was playing around with some of the settings. This is again why I hesitate to kind of do that to a certain degree. But I had changed the bit rate. Apparently, the bit rate I selected was too high for Twitch. So, because I read somewhere like, oh, higher bit rate means like you're gonna have a better, clearer stream or whatever. And it turned out there's a bit rate that you have to stay below, which I didn't realize. So, um, took me a while to figure that out. That gave me enough of a headache. Well, yeah, they do say that it's a holographic universe, right? That it's the physical world is a projection of other effects, right? There's that theory in physics or something. Life is but a dream, right? Row, row, row your boat. Might as well, right? Give her her triceps back right here. Yeah, but definitely a lot of the examples for golden ratio, like they don't align with it for sure. Yeah. Plato's cave driving the ship of Theseus, right? That's what we got going on. I heard that people keep bringing up that ship of Theseus thing all the time online, I've noticed. Do I start at 9 every morning? Um, yeah, so if you look at my pinned comment there, Melissa, I'm on other platforms using my art professor as opposed to the one you're looking at now that's at Rainland Studios. But yeah, some definitely other places. I actually tried to start earlier. I was a little delayed this morning. I missed the conversation, but I was arguing with someone on the internet. And so, for no reason, you know. So I usually try to start between 7 and 8 a.m. Eastern Time, most mornings. Um, is usually the plan, so sometime in that range. So I get up around between 5:30 and 6 to walk dog. Yeah, I know. Well, I was like, I thought it would be easy to find examples on the internet just of it being used generally, because I know it is. I mean, like I've used it. I know other people have. Um, but the all all the popular examples were all terrible. Um, so that's the internet for you these days. Everything's terrible. Um, Yeah, it's just the most popular grid, so it's just well known. But there's the rule of thirds is another grid that's really common. I mean, they stick it on your iPhone, stick it on your phone cameras. It's like it's right there on the camera. You'll see it on being used over films, like they use the rule of thirds. And they mostly do that just because it helps them avoid making things too symmetrical all the time by accident, because it's easy to do even spaced symmetry in 2D art, especially. Probably 3D too, but it's, it's more of a question in 2D among 2D people for the most part, I think. And so by using asymmetrical grids like a uh, like a rule of thirds, you can it's easier to kind of break up the space a little bit. So you're not putting things in like at even distances from each other all the time. But usually, like the simpler the grid, the more effective it is as well. So if you start subdividing it too often, then yeah, it's arbitrary. But if it's very, very basic, then it works for sure. Like it's it's using it clearly, then it's there. It's just you know, and I don't think it's magic. It's just it's a thing that people can do that I think has a certain amount of utility. And I shouldn't have wasted my. I shouldn't have said anything. It was like I got up and you're sitting on the toilet scrolling, and you're just. I was like, you know, why not jump in and just say something? I want to feel something today, so I'm going to use Facebook to feel something. Um, right? That's what the Zuck wants, right? So, um, they should get a DM there, Melissa, and that will have a automated bot for collecting emails there. I need to put like a better confirmation at the end of that bot conversation sometime. Um, it's a better conversation than the ones I'm having at the university, where all the art professors want to. Well, not all, but a lot of them like they want to get into all the AI stuff. Yeah, thank you for signing up. I'm hoping to get a certain number on there before I really do it, but all those time lapses you see on Instagram are from me working on the pitch for that. So whether I go with like a Kickstarter situation or a try to get I think I'll probably try to get a publisher first, just because I think that would be good for me to try that out. So send it out to the major kind of indie creator friendly publishers first. We'll be inking on that stuff later today. Start with that color. Just need to be lightened up a little bit. Oh, look, there's another one. I got it. All right, good. Yeah, the paintings I'm doing here, these are mostly just like me practicing acrylics. So acrylic is kind of a medium, and I've talked about this in here before, but it's kind of a medium I've generally avoided. Um, I didn't like its working properties and how quickly it dried, and then like after I was using it in school, we moved on to other classes where we're using oil painting, and I just like that a lot more. And then last year, I had to teach a class using it. And I was hesitant about it because I was like, well, can't we use oil? And they're like, no, you can't because the classroom is not equipped for ventilation, for proper ventilation. I'm like, well, that's weird that you have this like art school that's been around for like 100 years and you don't have like properly ventilated spaces. Um, but that was the rule, so I was like, well, I guess we use acrylic. I'd rather use this, but you know, I'm sure students these days, definitely prefer using digital most of the time. Yeah, definitely more forgiving. I like how they paint too. Um, but I think it was. I look back at my student experience, 20 years ago when was like the last time I did some finished work in acrylic, and I was thinking about it. I was like, well, maybe the reason I didn't like acrylic painting because I like paintings that people do with acrylic paint. Like I see a lot of really good stuff that I like. I was thinking, well, maybe the reason I didn't like acrylic painting is that wasn't very good at painting. I didn't understand color and color temperature and color mixing and all of those important things that are actually important to understand just in general for painting or using color at all, whether you're using digital or traditional or whatever medium. Maybe the problem with acrylic paint wasn't the paint, maybe it was me. And I bumped into that thing, that issue a number of times over the years. So I gave it I was bringing in artists that I know used acrylic extensively, like James C. Christensen or John Jude Pollinkar or Doug Chang or Ralph McQuarrie, among others. And I'm showing the work of the students and explaining some of the techniques they're using. James C. Christensen is probably someone who used golden rectangle. If I would go back and look at his stuff, but if I had to guess, he seemed like the kind that he's like big into symbolism in his pictures. Well, he was. He's dead now, but I think he would have used him. But yeah, so I was looking at their techniques and I was doing demos in class, the basic processes and how to use it and having them use it. And I'm like, well, I'm going to try doing a finished picture in here using this basic palette I start them with, the Zorn, the modified Zorn, the modern Zorn palette, I guess you might call it. And I was pretty happy with the results. I was like, well, maybe it was, maybe I was the problem all along. And so I thought, well, I'm going to spend some time doing studies and uh, paintings, illustrations using acrylic, do a certain number at the very least that are kind of finished. So that's what I've been doing in the morning since the new year started, was working on this stuff. Um, so and now I've been looking at Michael Whalen, who's a book cover illustrator for 80s and 90s, early 2000s. I think he's mostly retired now, but he does really nice stuff with it. So um, yeah, it definitely has it definitely has its advantages. Like it dries quickly. I think in reading Michael Whalen stuff, I wish I'd gone with buying soft body acrylics over heavy body. And I also found an acrylic medium that makes it easier to work with the heavier paints. So I use what's called high flow medium. And basically, I think it has a little bit of what's called retarder in it. You allowed to say that on the internet? Um, so it slows the drying of it. So I use this stuff right here, high flow medium. And makes the flow better. You can use water, but water can be a problem in it, in that kind of well, it dilutes the paint down, but it also breaks the structure of the paint and makes it harder to control. So this kind of keeps the liquidity of it, but it keeps it easy to control so it doesn't drip away. Yeah, that's how you spell it. He's taken himself off of most social media platforms. And he said, but he is on Cara, so Cara. And he posts like processed pictures and old images of his book covers like almost daily over there. And I think you can go to Cara without actually logging in. But yeah, if you look at Michael Whalen over there, you'll see his stuff. He used to do a ton of book covers. Like he did all of the famous Foundation series from Asimov. He did all of their book covers. He did there's a book of like these dragon flyers, dragon riders. I forget the name of it. It's about an alien planet where there's like these dragon-like creatures that people fly around on. It's become kind of a medieval world after they came to live there for a long time. Yeah, so yeah, it's just Michael Whalen, like you spelled it. But he's only on Kara as far as social media platforms. He took himself off of I think as a result of all the AI business going on. It's like he doesn't need new clients. He doesn't need new business. He doesn't really, he's retired, so he's just sharing his stuff. But I'm sure he'll come out of retirement for like a project people call him up for. But he has some notes on his website about his materials and his technique and how he approaches his work. It's nice of him to share. Appreciate that. Machines of Empire, Machineries of Empire. I'm not familiar with that one. I did just read. There is no I listened to while I was inking. There is no memetics division, which is quite good. I was quite surprised. I was like, well, we'll see. I've heard people talking about it. I'll give it a listen. I tend to listen to books at like 1.5 speed, and or not 1.5, 1 1/3, and so it was like a 6 hour listen or something like that, 6 7 hour listen, 9 hour audiobook, and it was quite good. It was interesting. Machineries of Empire. I should probably write it down to look it up. It had a lot of interesting imagery in there. It's all about kind of like it's like similar to an X-Files division, but it's like a fully funded one, and they track and catalog phenomena that affects your ability to remember. That it erases memories or prevents them from forming or uses them as food or it's yeah, so it's they deal with anti-memetic things that are hard to remember or I was surprised. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure because it was an author I wasn't familiar with, and I have a bunch of credits on Audible. I realized a while ago that I've actually been on there since 2004, giving them $20 a month for 2 books. So it's 22 years, and I don't always I go through kind of spurts. I'll listen to a bunch of books and then not for a long time. So I always have like this large volume of credits over there. So I was with them before they were bought by Amazon, but um, so. But yeah, so I was like, oh, I'll listen to that. I was listening to it. Was it Children of Mine, or whatever, or Children of Ruin, Children of I forget, Sandor and Adrian Tchaikovsky. I like the first book. The other ones that are like, I think they're okay. It feels like he's working himself through a catalog of different types of situations that are related to each other. Um, and so that's kind of, it starts to, it feels a little like a checklist rather than a story to a certain degree past the first book for me. Um, but it's just interesting visuals. Well, the book is about like a far future human civilization has like a interstellar empire. And anyway, they're working on these terraforming projects, and as part of their experiments they're conducting, they're trying to kind of force evolution on certain species in order to kind of increase the number of intelligent species in the universe and see what that does. And in the first book, they're trying to do it with, I think, chimps. And anyway, just at the moment they're about to launch this experiment, so they've terraformed the planet down below to a certain degree. They're about to send the chimps off, and then there's suddenly an anti-tech revolution appears in the Empire, and they send out this signal, basically, that goes out to everyone in the galaxy, or the within their system of civilization, all at the same time. You know, it arrives at different times, obviously, because of space. But space and time and distance. But basically, it fries all of the systems and causes everything to shut down. And the idea was that it basically kills this empire. It's like a super virus that kills the empire. And so, as they're doing that, it kills the monkeys, but the virus still lands on this planet. And the lady who was working the system, she manages to get into like an escape pod that uh, can protect her as like a watcher over the planet for thousands of years. And anyway, so the virus gets on the planet and it converts a few species on the planet to this intelligent format. So it doesn't do the monkeys; it does jumping spiders, some kind of crab. I forget the name of it in the water, and they don't really deal with it in the story as much. It's just sort of mentioned there as like a thing that exists, and also to ants to a certain degree. Though the ants don't get consciousness, they become like living computer systems, like a hive mind, basically. But it's a hive mind that doesn't have um, consciousness. And the second book deals with another planet, and they do octopuses. It's called, I think it's Children of Mine by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So, like the composer. Uh, there's a fourth book. It just came out. I saw the pre-order went through. So when I'm finished listening to the current book I'm listening to, I'll probably pop that one in and then there probably won't be one for a long time. Yeah, the second book, it's about octopuses, octopods, depending on how you want to say it, and a intelligent slime mold that's an actual alien species. Um, and then the third one's about a lost another human colony. So when the other book, it deals with a human colony that shows up at this planet of spiders, thousands of years later, and they're people that have escaped Earth because Earth is like a hellscape where they set off nukes and it's like a permanent winter, and they've spent generations building colony ships to get to these terraforming projects, and so this ship shows up just as this is happening. And they have less tech, they have a lower rate of technology than the old Empire does, and so they get confronted by the systems left behind by this lady in hibernation. But and yeah, the third book was about another colony ship that went out, and um, and the kind of the circumstances they ran, because they come to a planet where the terraforming was incomplete, and they have to stop there, like they have no choice, and deals with what they had to deal with on that planet, and something foreign that exists there already, that affects them a certain way. That was, I think that was Children of Ruin. But it was interesting to listen to them. I saw people recommend some interesting visuals, because the spiders get to be around like 3 feet big as they improve in their evolution. Yep, no problem. What time is it anyway? 10 o'clock. Oh, we're a little over an hour, so I think we're about ready to stop. I wanted to work on this arm mostly, clean up a few spots. And because of my late start, I sometimes spend like a couple hours, but I think I should probably stop now so I can get other necessary things done today. Yeah, just kind of going through correcting my drawing, my rougher drawing and design here. Um, let's see. Let's make sure these fingers don't look like sausages before we're done now. Show the joints. Yeah, painting is smaller. You have to kind of like daub the paint on in little dots to get it on here. And I saw they had like a bunch of the Richard Stark Parker books on there, which I've read the. So a guy was there was a, I forget his name right now, but there was a comic book artist who was doing illustrated versions of them. He did, I think, 3 or 4 of them, and then he passed away of cancer like 10 years ago. But they have like these old school, like hard boiled detective criminal books. So I thought I grabbed a bunch of those. Let's see how those are. And those probably take, a day each to listen to. I'd rather read books, but I have to schedule the time in for that these days. Too many things. Oh, hello. I'm doing good. We've had long discussions about oil painting chemistry, Fibonacci sequence, and golden rectangle, and other grid designs, and their use and not